Hi, welcome to my channel. I thought I'd do the next part of Ireland's biggest unsolved mystery, Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. This was a series of women who disappeared without a trace in the 90s. They were all similar in age and disappeared around the same time and in the same area. The main theory is that it was a serial killer. Last time I spoke about Annie McCarrick's disappearance, and this time I'm going to speak about the woman who went missing next, and that's Eva Brennan. I know these cases were so long ago, but all of the women's families are still searching for answers and don't want these cases forgotten. They still put out appeals for any information, and hopefully one day this will be solved. If you like this kind of thing, please give this video a like, subscribe for more, and let's get started. First up, a disclaimer. This is all information that I found online that I'm sharing with you guys, and I mean absolutely no disrespect to anyone that I'm speaking about in the video. And I'm not going to give any of the suspects names because no one has ever been officially charged in this case. So 12 weeks after Annie McCarrick disappeared, Eva Brennan disappeared, and just like Annie, it was as if she vanished off the face of the earth. Eva was the oldest out of all the women that went missing. She was 39 years old, but her family and friends say she looked a lot younger than her age, and people often thought she was in her 20s. Eva was described as a quiet person who was a creature of habit. She lived alone in an apartment in Rathgar in Dublin and was very much a homebody. She came from a big family of 4 brothers and 3 sisters, and they were all very close. She would go to her parents' house for lunch every single day. She was also very religious and would go to church every day and had friends in the prayer group, but outside of this she just did not go out much. Her parents bought her the apartment, and when they were buying it they were making sure it was safe and secure. She didn't go out at night, so overall it seems like Eva really didn't put herself in danger or at risk. The day Eva went missing was a Sunday in the summer. It was 25th of July 1993. That morning she went to church, as she always did, and like every day she went to her parents' house for lunch. She didn't drive, so she walked to her parents' house in Terenure, which was about a 15 to 20 minute walk away. She arrived at her parents' house about 1 p.m. However, she ended up not staying for lunch. When she opened the oven to see what her mother was cooking and she saw it was lamb, she said, "Feckin' lamb again," and her brother said, "You don't have to be here if you don't want to be," so she left. It was a silly, petty sibling argument that everyone has, and they assumed she'd be back the next day. The next day, however, Eva never turned up for lunch. This was very unusual for her. She was a creature of habit, and the argument the day before wasn't that big a deal, or wasn't that out of the ordinary that she would still be upset about it. The family were worried, and when they hadn't had contact with her by the next morning, they knew something was wrong, and Eva's father, David, went over to her apartment to see if he could find her. He rang the doorbell, but there was no answer. The family owned 2 pubs in the area, the Horse and Hound and the 108. The 108 pub was very close to Eva's apartment, so David went to the pub, asked a barman to help him break into the apartment, and together they broke a window and got in. Everything looked normal, the place was spotless, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. The jacket she had worn to the family lunch was there, so they were sure she had made it back to the apartment after leaving the family home on Sunday. David went straight to the Garda, the police, to report Eva missing, but they said since she was over 21, she was an adult and there wasn't much they could do. He went back the next day and gave them a description of Eva, but they just seemed pretty uninterested. One important thing to note is that Eva was depressed at the time she went missing, and this made Garda conclude it was likely that she had done something. However, her family were adamant that there was no way she would have ever hurt herself for 2 reasons. First of all, she was so close to her family, she loved her family, and she would never have disappeared without leaving them a note, without explaining things. She never would have left them with questions. And second of all, she was extremely religious, and doing anything like that was against her religion. Also, a body would have turned up somewhere, and there was no body, so her family insisted there was no way, it was out of the question, that she had done something to herself. I'm not sure how depressed Eva was. These days mental health is acknowledged and spoken about and treated, but back then it wasn't really openly addressed. But Eva's family say she was happy around the time she went missing, but still Garda just chose not to pursue this. Eva's family felt very frustrated. It was just a few months after Annie McCarrick went missing, and for Annie there was huge publicity and searches and media, and for Eva there was nothing. Both of these women just disappeared without a trace, but one of them was being investigated and the other one was being dismissed, and they didn't understand why. The family think that because Annie was an American policeman's daughter, there was pressure on the Gardaí to solve this case, whereas with Eva there just wasn't the same pressure. Eva's family tried to put the pieces together themselves. They searched through her apartment to see what was missing and what she might have been wearing. The pink tracksuit she had been wearing to the family home was missing, missing. So they assumed that's what she was wearing and she must have gone missing on the Sunday. They knew she had made it home because her coat was there, so they assumed she made it home and went out again that day for some reason. Her keys, her purse, and her money was missing. The family did whatever they could and asked around, but nobody knew anything. Eva's sister Colette said they were like headless chickens running around, like not knowing what to do. They were looking in bushes, they were running up hills, searching everywhere, but there was no sign of her. They still hoped that Eva would come home one day, so they went into her apartment to keep it clean for her and wipe away any dust. Eva's father, David, didn't like asking for favors, but when he realized what a battle it would be to find out what happened to his daughter, he was ready to battle. He was a member of the political party Fianna Fáil, and through connections, he managed to ask the Taoiseach, Ireland's Prime Minister, for help. Finally, there were Garda at their house taking statements and ready to solve this case. They launched a search and checked canals, fields, and hedgerow, but nothing. The route that Eva would have walked home that day was heavily populated, and it was a Sunday in the summer, so a lot of people would have been out, they would have been sitting outside, and not one person saw Eva walking home that day. Her family were well known in the area, and Eva had grown up there, so a lot of people would have known her. So it's very bizarre that not one person saw her. There were absolutely no sightings of her that day. When the Garda went to her apartment to do a forensic investigation, unfortunately there was nothing they could really investigate because the family had been cleaning it and unfortunately cleaned away any possible evidence. So there weren't many leads, but Eva's family were happy that at least now the Garda were helping them with the case. But then a new Taoiseach came into power and the investigation pretty much stopped. There just wasn't much the Garda could do, and really there was nothing to go on. So again, the family felt like they had to fight for answers. They would regularly go into the Garda and ask for any updates and just keep reminding them of Eva, but the case went cold. There was just no evidence and no leads. There were 3 suspects who it was thought could be involved. Again, I'm not going to give any names because no one has ever been officially charged with this. The first suspect is the person that a lot of people believe was responsible for all of the women going missing in Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. I mentioned him in Annie McCarrick's video, and the reason people think that he's responsible is because he was actually caught mid-attempted murder and was jailed. And when he was jailed, all of the cases suddenly stopped. There were no more women going missing. Also, the circumstances surrounding this attempted murder seemed like it could be him. He had seen a woman earlier in the day and stalked her, and as soon as he had the opportunity, he attacked. He put her in the boot of his car and drove to a remote area where he assaulted her multiple times. Then he brought her to the Wicklow Mountains. It was nighttime, pitch black in the middle of a forest. He put a plastic bag over her head and was mid-suffocating her when, by complete miracle, 2 hunters came across them. The suspect took off and the woman was saved. And then another complete miracle, one of the hunters recognized the suspect and told the Garda who it was. The suspect was arrested, charged with attempted murder, and jailed. If the hunters hadn't come across them, would this woman have been another case in Ireland's Vanishing Triangle? So a lot of people are convinced that this man is the one responsible for all of the cases of Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. However, there's never been any evidence or anything to really tie him to any of these cases, so other people think it's not him. The second suspect was a man who was convicted of murder in a case that reminded a lot of people of Eva's case. A woman named Marilyn Rynn went missing around Christmas time, about a year and a half after Eva went missing. She was 41, and like Eva, she enjoyed a quiet life. And similar to Eva's case, when Marilyn's family went to the Garda, they assumed that maybe she had ended her own life and didn't really open an investigation. It was 2 weeks later, only after Marilyn's family had gone to the media, that Garda finally put on a search, and Marilyn's body was found within 15 minutes. She had been assaulted and strangled, and her body was left in a bush. The Garda asked some potential suspects that had been in the area around the time of the murder for some blood samples, and they quickly found the killer through DNA. The killer had only given a sample after searching online how long DNA should last on a body, and after 16 days he thought he was in the clear. However, the weather had been very cold, so his DNA had survived for longer than usual. He is regarded as the first person in Ireland to be convicted using DNA. Now, here's a very bizarre connection. He and the first suspect I just mentioned were first cousins. I don't think there was any connection, like they were in this together or doing any murders together or anything. I think it was just a very strange coincidence. But anyway, this suspect, most people believe he was not involved in Eva's case. There was no evidence, there was nothing to connect him to it other than that he had committed this other murder, but also he was jailed in 1998, before the end of Ireland's Vanishing Triangle, before women stopped disappearing. So the theory that it was one serial killer with all these cases, then this is not the guy. And the third suspect, the Gardaí have mentioned his name in possible connection with Eva, but her family say no, he was not involved. He was convicted of murdering 2 women, but they were both known to him, they were both his former partners, and there was motive. There was nothing similar about Eva's case. Gardaí theorized maybe they might have known each other, maybe there was a connection, but her family said absolutely not. They lived in different areas, they had different interests, and it was just extremely unlikely. After all these years, there's never been any sign of Eva. No clothing, no body. Anytime a body or bones are found, Eva's family are straight down to the Gardaí asking, is it her? If you can find one positive outcome to take from all this, is that the Brennan family drew up a list of actions to take to share with other people that ever find themselves in the same situation. As the family said, they were like headless chickens. They didn't know where to start. So they did up this list so that other families will know where to start and what action to take. It includes things like check phones, bank accounts, passports, talk as a family, use posters, newspapers, TV and internet, ask the police to stay in contact, and be kind to yourself. Sadly, Eva's parents and her sister Colette passed away without getting any answers. The rest of the family are of the belief that she was murdered and all they want is her body back. She's still remembered by the people of Ireland and candles are still being lit for her, and we all hope that her family will one day have some answers. I'm going to do the rest of the cases in future videos, so hit that notification bell if you don't want to miss them. And that's it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, please subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye.